Hello all, and welcome to tonight's beer review, which I am dubbing the BTS beer review because I had a McDonald's BTS meal, and it was, these limited edition special meals from McDonald's, they're very strange because they're basically McDonald's just randomly making something out of ingredients and saying, hey, this is such and such, a Belvin meal, or, the, I forget the guy before that, that rapper dude. But no BTS, and it's apparently just McNuggets with some sauce, and it's got like Korean on it, but it's like a sweet chili, which is kind of Korean, and a Cajun sauce, which has nothing to do with Korea at all. And oddly enough, the Cajun sauce seems to be like some sort of cheese base, which doesn't even seem Cajun, but it doesn't seem Korean or Cajun. It wasn't bad by any means. Well, within you know your expectations of what you're expecting from McDonald's, but yeah, it seemed very marginally related to either BTS, the Korean boy band, or the names of the sauces, I suppose. Anyways, so I'm going to be reviewing two things. I know in the last video I said I was only going to review one more thing, but I figured I got a weekend. I'm going to review two things, and I'm not going to be reviewing anything next weekend because I've got to upload those videos. And not only that, I'm going to have a somewhat involved medical procedure done next weekend. So yeah, I'm not going to be drinking all that. In fact, I won't be eating because I have to fast. I have to clean out my system completely before they put me under and whatnot. I'm not going to go into the details of it because obviously I don't want to gross you out or get too much into my own private issues, private health issues. And, afterwards I might not be drinking for a while, depending on what the doctor says. So, yeah. Actually, I'm going to be a little bit more upset if I have to give up caffeine and nicotine. But, yeah. Anyway, so what are we reviewing tonight? Well, I figured, since I reviewed Chimay Red, I'm going to review Chimay White. So, which they don't actually call Chimay White, they call it Cinq 75 for the 75 milliliter bottle here, which goes down to about like a 25 fluid, a little bit over 25 fluid ounces in, our nonsensical way of measuring things that somehow my brain still operates on. I can easily figure out how much, 12 ounces is or 16 ounces, a pint or a cup, but I cannot, for the life of me, visualize in my head how much of a liter's worth of fluid is. Even though I know intellectually it makes more sense to use the metric system. So, this is, of course, Trappist ale, and the back of the bottle is a little bit more readable. The registered trademark of Trappist certifies that this ale was brewed within the walls of an existing Trappist monastery under the control of the Trappist community. A major part of the sales revenue is used by monks to support charitable works. The exceptional yeast isolated by Father Theodore, combined with the purity of the highly protected water of the abbey's wells, gives Chimay its unique richness. Since 1862, Chimay's secondary fermented ales have neither been pasteurized nor filtered, and only natural ingredients are used. To fully appreciate the agreeable combination of fresh hops and yeast of Chimay Cinq, serve chilled in a wide-mouthed glass. Well, I don't have a wide-mouthed chalice, but I'll do my best with this Belgian tulip here. So, let's go and get this open, shall we? Hopefully it doesn't go and blow up on me. Whoa! Whoa! Definitely very energetic there. So secondary fermentation, which means I should be fairly gentle about how I pour it here. Oh, yep. So, very nicely carbonated. Almost an amber orange color, slightly hazy, opalescent, with a thick off-white head that is redolent of golden raisins, apricots, other stone fruits, floral hopping, hints of mown grass, crackery to bready malts, actually a little bit more to bready. This is 8.0 ABV, by the way, though with secondary bottle fermentation is probably not exactly 8.0. It's probably a little bit over. This head just keeps seeming to get deeper and denser. Very nicely carbonated, if I haven't said that already. I see why they went in a wide mouth glass, because it forms such a head with this secondary bottle fermentation. Mm. Some mild hop bitterness in the long finish with also almost a raisiny note on the tongue. Despite lots of visible carbonation bite is actually, well, I wouldn't say flat, it's soft. It doesn't have a snap bite. And that is something I find characteristic of a lot of, fermented bottles, especially one that's been on the shelf for a while, is that the carbonation feels softer. It's present, but it just has a softer mouthfeel there. This is a lot more hoppy. Oh, by the way, this is a triple, as red is a double and blue is a quad. And I believe, like the green, which they only serve at the monastery, is considered a table beer of sorts. This is the most hoppy of them. By no means is it anywhere near as hoppy as many modern craft beers, but for, I suppose, the pre-craft era, this would be very hoppy by American standards. While it's not completely hop forward, the hops emerge fairly soon in the front and into the mids, and remain on into the long finish. And while it is a nice contrast from the malt shows that are red and blue, I think it's so heavily hopped, it obscures the malting a little bit. The malting is where these beers are really shine and are really complex. It's still great, but it does have, the hop kind of is there above it all, covering it all, and the hops aren't really, um, while they're by no means are they bad or low quality, they are not particularly dimensional. There's the floral note in the front, some grassiness, herbaceousness, but it's not a very wide spectrum of hop flavors. And you're left kind of trying to find the various taste notes underneath that of the malts and the Belgian yeast. The malts being, of course, fairly sweet, fairly sugary, well balanced by the hops, I would say. I'm not saying this is over hopped. I'm saying that for any other beer, this would be a perfect balance. But I kind of just want to experience the malts a little bit more here. And they're there. Malts in the yeast, definitely in the Belgian style, very estery and phenolic. Notes of clove there. A little bit too dry to really ring the banana, notes in my brain. But I could see some people saying that. Banana or banana bread probably is a better thing to describe it as. As it warms up, much more of those more subtle notes are emerging from underneath the hopping. I also have to say this does not drink like an 8.0 at all. These Trappist ales tend to hide their alcohol very well. Yeah, I just have to say, I know I said it's balanced before. I just have to say it's just a bit too hoppy. I want those hops there. I mean, it's a nice contrast from the red and the blue, which have very little hop presence at all. But it just seems like the hopping here, while pleasant and attractive, are just really sort of obscuring all those wonderful notes that are in the nose. They're not coming out on my palate as much. Definitely becoming more and more bready as it warms, though. Just as a note with these live bottle fermentations, always remember don't drink the very last dregs unless you want a big old hit of yeast in your gut. I know I don't because let's just say it does a number on my digestive system and leave it at that. Yeah, a lot of the other taste notes are emerging as it gets much more closer to 60 degrees here. And honestly, I can kind of see why they would really hammer on the use of a chalice for this. It seems like a wide mouth glass would really go and bring out those flavors a little bit more than this narrow tulip here. Smells absolutely wonderful, by the way. I forgot to mention it when I popped it open, but it just suffused the area with that smell there. That wonderful aroma of Belgian beer, the yeast, malts. Yeah, a great beer. A lot of the other reviews here said that this was their least favorite of the various Chimay beers. By no means am I going to say this is a bad beer. It's a wonderful beer. If you put this in front of me and, just let me drink it, I would say, damn, this is a great beer. Uh, that said, in comparison to the other offerings, it's just not as sublime. So by all means, I would drink this if it was offered to me, especially at the price point it is. This bottle cost me $15 in Hawaii, so it's probably around $13 or so in the mainland. It's probably not much cheaper on the mainland due to the fact that it's an European import. And if I'm looking around, it seems like European imports for beers are, doesn't have as much of a wide price gap as, stuff that makes it across from the West Coast or East Coast. I am rambling on here. This is a, uh, yeah, it is, going back to what I said, it is the weakest of the Chimay Trappist ales. That said, it is still head and shoulders above many of the commercial varieties that are for sale, especially from brewers that don't specialize in Belgian ales. So, yeah, if you're serious about beer, you're going to go and drink this. At some point, you're going to go and drink this. Chimay is the most accessible of the Trappist ales. And while it's not my most favorite, then, well, I can't say that I've tried them all. My personal favorite so far has been Orval. It's still well worth drinking, well worth exploring, well worth revisiting every once in a while, just for, the fact that it's such a hallmark of the style, even if it's not Westable. So, Chimay, Cinq. You can correct my French if you want, because my French is probably god awful. A great beer, but probably the weakest on offer from this particular brewer, this particular monastery. You can tell it's a great, well-made, complex beer. It's just the hopping obscures the best part of the beer, which is the malts. You can tell all that complexity is there, but it's very difficult to suss out. Maybe no, it might be just me too. I'm finding as I'm aging that my tasting abilities seem to wax and wane a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, today is probably not my best day, but it's enough to go and see. There's a lot of flavor there, a lot of complexity, a lot of nuances that are just not showing itself due to the hopping here. Not that it's inferior hopping or overhopped by any means. It's just uh, you just kind of want it to be you're expecting it to be you're holding it to a higher standard, and it, just go and drink it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I find that I, like many other reviewers, find this the weakest offering of them. Well, that's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.